All right. So, what started your career then in design? Was that did you go to school for it?
No, I didn't. I'm self-taught. So I actually remember sitting with what do you call those people? The guidance counselor in high school. And I always did well in school, but I was completely disengaged and uninterested and, didn't apply myself. Every report card I got for my entire life said the same thing. Like, Andrew's a very bright student. He doesn't apply himself and he enjoys socializing way too much. I'm like, in a nutshell,
Yep.
right here. So I think I just needed to find my niche, but I remember sitting down. I was always involved in the arts and theater and drama school and all that kind of stuff. And the guidance counselor and I basically decided like I would be good in design and was obviously excelling in theater. And I kind of,
Obviously.
and now Mr. DeMille, I'm ready. But I just decided I'm like, there's kind of more of a shelf life on theater because you really need to kind of attack it when you're younger to have a crack at getting involved. And not that you can't get involved when you're older or anything, like anything can happen, but the odds are better if you get in younger and if you want to sing and dance and act, like at least you can be ensemble and chorus. So I thought I can do design later. So I did. I had my first career was in music theater performance and I performed for I think 8 or 10 years. And ultimately I just decided I was really tired going from contract to contract, from gig to gig, not having any real stability, not being able to have a base.
Is this still in Newfoundland?
No, I had come here to go to Sheridan for
Okay.
school. So I started in university. I did a year in university at MUN in Newfoundland, but I was on the West Coast in Corner Brook at Grenfell College. That was in their acting program. Very quickly realized I have the ability to sing and dance, so I needed to maximize it. So Sheridan at the time was one of the best the best programs in the country. I think it's still very, very reputable. But I auditioned, I got accepted, and I always joke, I went in as an actor who could kind of sing and not dance, and I left as a singer who could kind of dance and not act. I'm like, I don't know what happened, but it all went sideways. But I did my 3 years there, and at that time, Germany was the third biggest theater capital in the world after London and New York. So I graduated and I moved to Germany and I worked there for five years. And then I
Wow.
moved back to Canada, worked a little bit more. And then I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this anymore. And
Huh.
peace out.
So then what took you into design then?
I was sitting in my house and this was when, so Terry, when did we do RTR? Like 2002, 3?
Probably.
Almost 20 years ago, right?
What did I have Bryce yet? My daughter?
Yep.
She was already born.
Yeah, how old is
So
she?
she was born in 99. So it was early 2000s then probably.
Early 2000s, yeah. And so we all know like the late 90s HGTV just took off and it was like the hottest thing in the world.
Yep.
And so I always think that we were kind of the second generation of that wave, right? Because it started, well, our Canadian celebrities were Stephen and Chris, Jane Lockhart, Kimberly Seldon, Linda Reeves, Peter Felico,
Candace Olsen.
Candace Olsen, Jason Katz, right? That was the first wave.
Forgot about Jason. Yeah.
Do you remember? And poor Jane had to stand on a box because he's
Yeah.
like 6'7" or something, and Jane
Yeah.
5 foot fuck all. But right at that time, the early 2000s, they had an ad on TV on HGTV that said, like, do you have great design style? I was like, check. Do you have an outgoing personality? And I'm like, check, check. Are you ready to be HGTV Canada's next design superstar? And I was like, ding, 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 3 cherries.
I forgot about that. Right.
And so I auditioned on that a bunch of people, thousands of people from Canada applied. They narrowed it down to the top 10, which is where I met Cheryl.
Now, just for everybody watching, that was basically like a Project Runway or American Idol, but it was to get your own television show as the next HGTV star.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And so we were top 10, met Cheryl. A couple days of whatever we had to do, they narrowed it down to the top 3. It was myself, Stacey McLennan, and another guy whose name I cannot unfortunately remember. Very nice guy. And then they crowned Stacey the winner. I was called in by HGTV and said, you obviously did very well in this competition, but it's just not the right time for you, but we'll find something for you. And very shortly after that, Stephen and Chris, who were the designer guys at that time, were offered a new series because they'd done 5 or 6 seasons of whatever they had, and they were doing the Design Rivals. And I was hired to be the ingenue on that show. And so I did that for a while, and then I was...
Is that how they worded it to you, or is that your own?
A little of column A, a little of column B.
Okay, Miss Ingenue. Love it.
No, I think my actual title on screen was the protege.
Right. It was actually. I remember that now. Yes.
But I prefer ingenue.
I know you did. All right.
So I did that, and then I was hauled off to do Rooms That Rock with Cheryl and Sarah. And the rest is history.
And it's funny because my first television gig in design was Designer Superstar Challenge, but I didn't come on until I filmed Stacey's final episode. So I was working in a fabric store at the time. I was just doing sewing on the side. I was still working in the travel industry. I was not doing this as a full-time job. I was just like, meh. Part-time on the side, I worked at a fabric store, BB Bargoons, back in that day. They're not around anymore. And the person working on Designer Superstar Challenge, Stacey had already been picked as a winner. So they were going to give her one final episode to make it look like this was her chance to show how she would do it in her own show. Right. And they needed somebody to do all the sewing. And next thing you knew, I showed up on set, and I was the guy in the room making all the curtains and pillows and stuff. That was the first time I was ever on television.
But who found you? Who found you to do that?
Mimi. So Mimi Pinot, and I don't think Stacey was with her at that time. It was just Mimi came into BB Bargoons to fabric shop for the episode. Right. I was helping her get fabric, and I said, if you need help with somebody sewing this stuff, like I heard on camera, I've always wanted. Part of the reason why I learned how to sew was to try to get myself onto one of these bloody HGTV shows. And when I got wind of that, I was like, hey, if you, I'll do it for you. So that when they filmed it, it was the day after my birthday. So I showed up reeking of cigarettes and vodka, hung over like nothing. And they crammed me into a room that was maybe...
I'm ready to go.
Yeah. I was in a room that was maybe 7 feet by 6 feet with a baby crib. So it was a nursery and a tiny little table, my sewing machine, and I had to sew all this stuff for them. But it was fun. I loved it. And then I think my next show was Rooms That Rock. So technically my first show was a show that you were on. And so was my next show. And actually I did do another show, Take This House and Sell It. And that may have been right before Rooms That Rock, but they also ran simultaneously. I was doing both shows at the same time. So Designer Superstar Challenge was first. So you weren't even working in design. You were working to come to television, right?
I think...
Like me.
Yes, I think it was a perfect intersection. So this is how I tell this story, is that my goal was never to win Designer Superstar Challenge. It would have been lovely. My goal was to put myself in front of a group of people that could see me as a potential talent, right?
Right.
And that's exactly what happened. So all of a sudden, you know, Design Rivals, Rooms That Rock, whatever else came out of it, that was fine. My career in TV had already started
Right.
because I always believed there was a bit of a problem with the HGTV mandate, because it was kind of like, let's find a designer who can do a show. I'm like, that's one way to do it. Or you find a personality and stick a bunch of people behind the scenes who can actually do the design, because people don't want to watch a boring designer on TV. I don't care how good you are. Like, you either need to be like British deadpan dry humor boring, or really vivacious. And so I think they were, in my opinion, you know, they were trying to find these people that were designers. I'm like, no, just go for the personality. And ultimately, you see a lot of that now, because these shows are completely cast just to make good looking couples or good looking pairs or trios or whatever it is. And they have no, you know, cred in the industry. I was one of those people. I readily admit I have no problem admitting that I'm self-taught. I've worked really hard to learn the things that I have, and I have a very successful interior design business doing this stuff. But I essentially made it work because I went to school for theater and performance. And you're looking for TV people? Right here. Oh, by the way, I also have a pretty decent sense of style, and I can put a room together. So done.
Yeah. I'm the same. Like I said, I didn't even finish high school. I've never done any other schooling. So I've never been to school for any sort of design, or everything I've ever done ever with my life in any job, in any capacity. I just did it. I just learned how to do it and did it.
And you know what? I feel like there was a pivotal moment when I came to my parents and I said, I'm going to go to school for theater. And every parent's dream. Oh God. But I mean, I was always artistic, and my mother said to me, why don't you go to school for teaching first, so that you have something to fall back on? And I literally said, I don't need something to fall back on, because it had never occurred to me that I wasn't going to succeed.
Right.
And I think for people like you and I, it's like, I may not have the training, I may not have the background, I may not have the advantages, but if I decide to do something, it's my be all and end all, that it is going to happen. And I think we've applied ourselves. This is what I want, and I'm going for it. And I'm not saying that that wasn't without its foibles or its challenges or its problems.
Yeah.
But it was never something in my mind like, oh, well, the theater thing might not work out. If you approach life like that, nothing is going to work out.
Yeah, that's exactly the same path I took. And yeah, dude, challenges. I have gone home to my apartment so many times with eviction notices on the doors, no phone working, the hydro being cut off, eating Mr. Noodle ramen noodle packs because they were 4 for $1. That's all I would eat for months on end, because it's all I had the money for. But dude, I loved what I was doing. I was doing what I wanted. I become that. If there's something I'm interested in, I want to do, I become hyper obsessed with it, and I will do nothing but learn how to do that. I will watch every single fucking video on YouTube, and I'm going to master that.
Exactly.
And that's just the way I've always been. And thank goodness, I mean, eventually I got through a lot of that pain and heartache, but hopefully there won't be any more, Andrew.
Oh, there's going to be more. Don't you worry.
Who the fuck is that?